I really wanted to create an earthy and yet still bright ganache to use for the fall, especially around Thanksgiving in the US. I wanted to use something kind of herby like rosemary, and then also wanted to brighten it up a bit with orange. I decided to add in both orange juice concentrate and some fresh orange zest. And of course, with any dark chocolate or milk chocolate ganache, I always use a bit of honey, butter, salt, and heavy cream. Even though I am a milk chocolate fan myself, I wanted to go for more of a dark chocolate ganache vibe, so most of the chocolate I'm using today is a darker chocolate with just a little bit of milk chocolate to kind of smooth that out. Then I'm adding some honey into that chocolate mixture. This is really going to help with the texture and the consistency at the end and for the macaron as it matures. I'm going to heat up the cream and the orange juice concentrate together and add in some fresh rosemary. I just ripped it up into some pieces. You can cut it up or grind it, whatever you want. And then I'm going to zest in some fresh orange zest right away and really warm this up. You can use your microwave, you can do this in a saucepan on the stove, whatever you want. Just heat it up to a scald and then leave it sit for about 5 minutes to infuse before straining it over your chocolate. If your cream has cooled off a bit in that time period, you might need to re-warm it before pouring it in. And for me, I use that sieve to get all of the rosemary and remove that from my ganache. But if you wanted to keep it in there, you absolutely could. Don't let me stop you from having this be like extra flavorful. So once that hot cream is poured over the chocolate, I like to let it sit there for about a minute or so before I start stirring. Then I just use a spatula or a whisk just to make sure that all of the chocolate seems to be melted before I switch to my immersion blender. Because this is a pretty simple ganache, you could probably get away with using just a whisk, but for the best texture and consistency, you absolutely do want to be using an immersion blender. I have mine that I use at home linked on my Amazon influencer storefront page, which is linked down below. After I emulsify a bit, I just add in my room temperature butter and some flaky sea salt, and then I'm going to let this cool completely to room temperature before I pipe it into my macarons. I find that with a dark chocolate ganache that it is really nice to make it a couple hours before you want to use it. That gives you a really nice, smooth, glossy texture for piping it into your macaron shells, or you can also make it the night or even the day before. I think that the longer you go between making it and piping it, kind of the rougher it might be, especially if you've had it in your refrigerator for a couple of days. You may need to re-warm and re-emulsify that to get the texture and consistency back to what you would originally want. I just had some extra sort of peachy orange shells and I wanted to give them more of that rosemary vibe, which is why I put a green stripe on them, but the shells are not important. They're not my favorite. The ganache, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The ganache has a really nice, bright element to it from both the orange juice concentrate and the orange zest, and then that really herby, earthy goodness from the rosemary. As you saw, I just added one sprig of rosemary in there, but if you want it to have a more intense flavor or a really subtle flavor, you can really play around with the amount that you have that in there or the amount of time that it is infusing into the cream, or as I mentioned, you can also just emulsify that right into your ganache for a really strong rosemary flavor. I hope you enjoy this orange rosemary ganache. Even though it is a super simple ganache to make, it has enough fun flavor elements that I think will be a pleasant surprise and a bit of a unique twist on a classic chocolate ganache. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that down below, and I hope to see you here again next time. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye.